evening and welcome back to the Rory Talks Football channel, your daily Arsenal news updates, debates and my opinions. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. We're on the way to 12,100 subscribers. And of course, if you could click the like button, I would be incredibly grateful. Look, there's lots to talk about today. We'll be talking about the game last night. Very enjoyable game to go and watch. We'll be talking about Mikel Merino. We'll be talking about the academy players, Eddie Nketiah. And yeah, there's lots to get into. So I hope you're all doing well. It's a Thursday, so basically the weekend at this point. And there are loads of you here, which you absolutely love to see. Junior Films, Ethan Udall, Vivi Vlad, Lord Ferguson of Aberdeen, Layla, Icarus, Lil Jones, Smithy, Hyper, Mia, Saka the Goat, Cringe, Anu Brata, Umer, Emilio, Kay, Stewart, Cullen, Steve, Paul, Ross Lawman, Hannah, Adam, and many, many more. It is good to see you all. Next stream, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Yeah, we'll be slightly earlier tomorrow, half an hour earlier than normal tomorrow, because I've got to go home again this weekend, right? That is unbelievable. I think that's the third weekend. No, yeah, that's the third weekend in a row. More people having birthdays. Do they not understand? The start of the season is here, and they're having birthdays. It's ridiculous. So I've got to go home early on Friday. Well, I've got to drive back Friday night, so slightly earlier stream than normal tomorrow. But there we go. Like I was saying on Tuesday, Zinchenko won't need to start most games, but he certainly has a role to play this season, especially with 2 games a week for the first 5 months. Yeah, look, Zinchenko shut my mouth yesterday. Fair play to him. He shut my mouth. We'd been asking, what does he offer? And he said, this is what I offer. And he scored a very good goal. I thought he performed really well. Didn't have to do a huge amount of defending. And there is a question about whether he could just play in midfield. There is a genuine question as to whether he could just play in midfield. Now, we've spoken about that before on here. I don't think it'll ever happen because I think if it was going to happen, Arteta would already have done it. But it has to be a question because we're keeping him. And once they get fit, we've got a lot of left backs, especially if you now throw in Miles Lewis-Skelly into the mix, which I think you have to do. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. What's going on with Merino? We'll get into that. We will get into Mikel Merino because it's quite interesting what's happening with him, actually. I was slightly worried last night about Mikel Merino, to be honest, with the news that Liverpool were closing in on Martin Zubimendi, which was frustrating, not only because supposedly Zubimendi had always said he wanted to stay in Spain, and that was the reason we couldn't get him, but also I was worried about the knock-on effect that Zubimendi going to Liverpool would have on our deal with Merino. But it seems like, that might not be so bad. So we will talk about that. The kit is, do you know what? The kit does look good. The home kit looks good, actually, I have to say. Zinni is okay as long as he can stay focused defensively. Yeah. Does one good performance sum up his whole preseason, though? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But equally, nor did one bad performance the other day. So you've got to balance it. But Partey's legs are gone. I think yesterday was actually remind me to talk about Partey in that situation later on, because I actually think that's quite important, because I think yesterday demonstrated something around the importance of Thomas Partey. Trossard put the keeper on his ass. Yeah, he did. He put the keeper on his ass, the defender on his ass. It was impressive. That whole move was impressive, to be honest. I'm really liking the Trossard, Havertz, Jesus, and so is Arteta. So I think we might see more of that this year. Did you see that the Ozil robbery attempt was a setup by Arteta to keep him focused? Honestly, if you've not seen this today, if you've not been on social media today, there was a thing that came out this morning in The Athletic about how at one of the evening dinners, the whole squad were out for dinner. And Mikel Arteta hired professional pickpockets to turn up to the dinner and to pick the pockets of the players whilst they were having their dinner, taking wallets, phones, keys, basically all so that at the end he could teach them the valuable lesson of always being alert and aware, no matter what they were doing. So just another one of Mikel Arteta's slightly unhinged coaching practices. But yeah, that's that. So yeah, maybe the Ozil robbery attempt was a setup. Maybe it was. I mean, what's next? Seriously, I just don't know. Stick in the back four in front of oncoming traffic to play an offside line or something. It's, yeah, he is different. He is different. Rival fans saying it's cringe. Do you know what? One of the most amusing parts of it for me was the fact that it seemingly made rival fans so angry. Like a little fun thing that he did at dinner, and rival fans are so angry about it. It's so weird. But it's funny. It's funny. And the thing is, right, it is a genuine coaching practice. It's a teaching practice to do weird things when you're trying to make a point. So it was the same with the light bulb thing, right? You do weird things whilst you're making the point because that sticks in people's memory. So they'll remember the time that they got pickpocketed at dinner, and then they'll remember the message that came with it. So there is actual method to the madness, but it is quite funny. I was right behind the goal for the Trossard goal. Oh, we were at opposite ends, Russ. We were at opposite ends. You got, to be honest, you got the short. No, you got the long. I got the short straw. You were at the end that saw the 3 goals in the first half. So yeah, you did well. You did well. Mikel's a clever man. He is. I actually love how mad we make rivals. Me too. Me too. Anyway, look, let's get on to the news and then we'll start talking more in depth about last night's game. So, on Mikel Merino. On Mikel Merino. So today, Real Sociedad's squad came out. They've got a friendly game tomorrow against Union Berlin, I think it is. I assume it's a friendly. Is it a friendly, actually? It must be a friend. Well, why would they put the squad out today, actually? Let me double check. Is it a friendly or is it actually a game? Yeah, it's a friendly. So they've got a friendly against Union Berlin tomorrow, and they put the squad out, and Mikel Merino was not in it. So Mikel Merino wasn't in the squad. Zubamendi was in the squad. And then a few things came out. So Fabrizio Romano said Mikel Merino has not been called up to the Real Sociedad squad as Arsenal's talks are still ongoing. Advanced discussions, but the deal, the structure and payment terms are still yet to be clarified. So sounds like we've agreed a fee. We just haven't agreed the deal structure. Ryan Taylor and a few other journalists then came out and said, being told by Real Sociedad club sources that Mikel Merino has been unable to complete the past 2 training sessions and therefore is not ready to play tomorrow against Union Berlin after being left out of the travelling squad. Workload is being managed and the decision is not linked to Arsenal interest. So there's some people saying that he's injured. There's some people saying that this is because he's close to an Arsenal move. Interestingly, I think he's close to an Arsenal move. I don't think he's injured. We've seen this a lot. It happens all the time in preseason. We saw it when Smith Rowe wasn't in the Arsenal squad for the preseason games because he was about to move to Fulham. Interestingly, the story of him not being in training and missing training sessions because he's struggling doesn't quite run with what we've seen on social media. Because yesterday there were videos of him in training, scoring goals in training. Even today, on Real Sociedad's own Instagram story, they had pictures from training and Mikel Merino is there. So that would suggest that Mikel Merino has been training, and it would suggest that this move is closer to happening. And obviously, look, we assume that that move is to Arsenal, given that he's turned down Atletico Madrid and that supposedly he'd agreed at personal terms with us. So I think it's close. We also heard this evening that, or throughout the afternoon, that the Zubamendi to Liverpool thing is not as close as people thought, and that Zubamendi is likely to stay at Real Sociedad. Apparently, they made a big presentation for him, which convinced him to stay at Real Sociedad. So, and because Liverpool, I don't think Liverpool were willing to trigger his buy clause. I'm not sure, but basically, it seems like Zubamendi isn't going to go to Liverpool. Now, would that have been a problem? Would it have been a problem if Zubamendi did go to Liverpool? Maybe, maybe not. They bought Sucic already this summer, who I think is a replacement for Mikel Merino. So in that sense, I feel like they've already got the Merino replacement. So losing Zubamendi, yes, they probably wouldn't have wanted to lose Zubamendi and Merino this close to the end of the window. But I think they'd have still been fine. They'd have still had, 3 weeks, 90 million euros in the bank to go and get another player. So, yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think it's close. I think that's why Merino isn't in the squad. and we're just waiting for Ornstein, to be honest. I'm waiting for Ornstein to say anything about this deal because he's been silent on Merino the whole way through. Arteta will send pickpockets to Spain to pinch Zubimendi's passport until we sign Merino. It is funny. It is funny. Do you think Arsenal might try to sign a striker in the winter transfer window instead of this one? No. I'd be very surprised. And the reason is the January transfer window is not a good window to sign marquee players generally, because you would be negotiating with a club. Let's say that the two striker options are Gyökeres and Osimhen. Maybe you can end up throwing some more in there. But let's say for argument's sake, it's Gyökeres and Osimhen. If they keep those two players this summer, they are then important players for them next season. And I just don't think that they'd want to lose them in January, and they wouldn't want to lose them for less than they want for them now. So I just don't think that's the sort of thing that would happen. If Merino had fallen through, if Merino had not happened, I could have seen a world in which we went and got a striker instead, and actually Havertz would default to becoming considered a midfielder as much as a striker. Because I think we've seen a couple of good games from Havertz in midfield over the last couple of games. So maybe that's something that could have happened. But hey, Rory, hope you had a good day. You too. Do you think clubs are reluctant to spend with an eye on the January window? Not really. Not really. And the reason I say that is when clubs weren't spending in the last January. Remember how dry the last January window was? Like, we didn't sign anyone. Most clubs didn't sign anyone last January. And a lot of people were saying, they've all got eyes on the summer. Everyone's waiting to spend big in the summer. We thought we were waiting to spend big in the summer. And that's not happened either. I just think the market has shifted. I think the penalties for breaching FFP rules and stuff have scared teams. And so, yeah, I don't think you ever wait and keep and don't do something in the summer because you want to do it in January, because just by default, like, doing stuff in January just isn't as ideal as doing it in the summer, because it's mid-season and you have to try and integrate players like throughout January, February, especially if you're in the Champions League. You have very few actual training sessions because you're playing twice a week. And so if you've just bought a player as well, it's very difficult to get them up to speed with the squad. We signed Trossard in January 2023 and we paid 27 million for him with 6 months left on his contract. It worked out, but was insanely high fee considering. Yeah, at the time it was. Do you think Calafiori will get some game time against Lyon? I'm not sure. Interestingly, on Calafiori, obviously he wasn't in the squad yesterday. Mikel Arteta was asked about why he wasn't in the squad. He said, in regards to Ricardo, so much happened to him in 1 week. He's come into a new environment with a different methodology and different training. So we're managing him and we want to do it slowly and in the best way possible. Hopefully, he will be available to play some minutes on Sunday. So there you go. Arteta's answered the question for you. Hopefully he'll get minutes on Sunday. But you do have to appreciate, effectively, within a week, Calafiori got back from his holiday and obviously got home to Italy. He then flew to London to do the medical stuff. He then flew to America to join up with the team. He then flew back from America back to London, where he'll be now living in a new place that's brand new to him. And he's trying to catch up with the rest of the squad. So I can understand... I can understand why Arteta didn't want to throw him straight into the team, because there just wasn't much point. Interestingly, his shirt was already in the dressing room. So I think at some point they were planning on having him play and they made a late call not to have him play, which is fine. The transfer market's calming down. Someone tell Todd Bowley. Oh, my. I don't even know where to start with Chelsea. So they've signed Omarodi on for like whatever it was, 40 million euros or whatever. Which I think is bonkers anyway, because it's another raw player with a high ceiling but needs to develop. And today they've spent another 20 million euros on another goalkeeper to add to Petrovic and Sanchez and Jorgensen and Slanina and Bettinelli and Caparaza. What, like, I don't know. I don't know what they're doing over there, but I do know it is mental. It is absolutely mental. After Calafiori, do you think we will actually sign anyone else? If so, who potentially? Do you mean after Merino? Because I think we're going to sign Merino. After Merino, do I think we'll sign anyone? 50-50. 50-50. I think if an opportunity comes, if an opportunity presents itself, if the player's value drops because the team's really desperate to get rid of them, maybe something happens late on. But yeah, I think that's complete 50-50. Smash the like button, people. Yeah, if you could hit that, look, there's over 250 of you here. If you can get us up to 100 likes, 100 likes during the stream, I would be very, very grateful. Petrovic, Kepa will be sold. Beach, Slonina, Bergstrom, Penders will be loaned. Which is fair, but why do you need that many goalkeepers to start with? Like, you know, when Chelsea or like Maresca the other day was saying, well, the reason that we have to sell Conor Gallagher and the reason we have to sell Trevor Chalobah is because of PSR. It's like, no, because you've opted to go and spend like 40 million euros on goalkeepers this summer that you didn't need so that you can send them on loan. Like, you've got 47 outfield players that are either on loan or at the club. Like, you're buying a ton of players that you don't actually need, but you're hoping you can make a profit on. It's like, to say that you have to sell the academy players to do that is just not true. Would you start Jesus up front and Havertz in midfield against Wolves? Yeah, possibly. We'll talk about it. I'll rattle through the rest of the news and we will talk about that because I think it's interesting. I think what we've seen from Mikel Arteta throughout preseason, I think it says a lot about what we can expect next season, and I do think it's interesting. On Eddie Nketiah, so this was yesterday from Fabrizio Romano. Olympique Marseille explored a move for Wahi in the last 24 hours. We spoke about that a couple of days ago. While Eddie Nketiah option remains on the table after Arsenal returned open to discussing the terms of the deal again, having rejected a bid last week. Marseille are reflecting the Moukoko deal is a separate deal. So Moukoko is nothing to do with Nketiah or Wahi. Them signing Moukoko won't make a difference to Nketiah or Wahi. I think they're playing us. I think Marseille are playing a game. I think Arsenal turned down the 27 million euros and effectively threatened to walk away from Marseille. And Marseille called their bluff. And then Marseille said, okay, we'll go and get Wahi. We'll go and get Eli Wahi. The difficulty with that is that Wahi only moved last summer to Lens, and he moved for 35 million euros. And Lens aren't going to sell him for less than they bought him for last summer. And Marseille are going to go nowhere near that fit. But immediately after that, Arsenal came back to the table and are now willing to open discussions again based on the last bid. So I think Marseille played us a little bit. I think they called our bluff. They said, fine, we'll move on. And Arsenal turned around and went, actually, let's talk. We can talk. So I think Arsenal are very much ready to get rid of Eddie Nketiah. I think the very limited minutes that he's had through preseason have been notable. Eddie Nketiah to replace Bournemouth. I think you mean Solanke at Bournemouth. Possibly. But Nketiah has agreed personal terms at Marseille. So, I think it will happen. You know, yesterday he got a handful of minutes again, but he's not getting many minutes in preseason. I think we've got Jesus, who looks far, far better this season. So I think he'll go. We're the worst run club in England by an absolute mile. Sportcat is a Chelsea fan, if you're wondering. You might be. Do you think Solanke will do well at Spurs? It's interesting, right? I find this interesting. Sky Sports put up a graphic yesterday of Solanke compared to Richarlison. And they compared the stats, right? The goals, the assists, shots on target, something else. And they compared them. And Solanke had a fair bit higher on each of those stats compared to Richarlison. But at the bottom of the graphic, it showed the minutes played. And last season, Richarlison played less than half of the minutes that Solanke played. And so if you actually changed that graphic, and instead of just having the raw numbers, you changed the graphic into per minute or per 90 minutes, actually it showed that Richarlison scored more goals per 90 minutes. He got more assists per 90 minutes. He had more shots and more shots on target per 90 minutes. And so it actually suggested Richarlison had a better season. Now, obviously, Richarlison was playing in a better team than Bournemouth. But yeah, I'm not sure that Solanke is a massive upgrade on Richarlison, to be honest. Hello, Rory. Your TikTok earlier was so funny. No big move for Eze this summer. A bit sad, I guess. Yeah, it does seem like Eze is going to stay at Palace this summer. Rory, some League Gunner clips popped up on my TikTok, and my goodness, this guy doesn't know ball. Said Dino was Letitia with trophies. Yeah. Listen, he's no. Havertz in the 8 looks good with Trossard and Jesus. They all link up well, and they can all switch positions. It works well. Yeah, I agree. What the fuck is this? Rory starts 1 over. What does that mean? Andrew, I can't figure out what that means. Why do I feel that the Premier League will be much more competitive this season? Because it will. I think it will be competitive. I think the battle for Champions League spots is going to be unbelievable this season. I think us and City will be clear again. Maybe that's arrogant, but I do think us and City will be clear again. But I think the fight for the places behind that, Liverpool, United, Chelsea, Newcastle, Villa, Spurs, I think it's going to be very good. I do think it's going to be very good. Do you think Saka will be managed well this season, considering there's no news on another winger? I do worry about it. To be honest. Yeah, I do worry about it. Are we likely to move for a winger or a striker? What names? Well, that is the issue, right? What names? We're not hearing any names. I don't think we're going to go for a winger because we're just not hearing anything. There's been no links. There's been no anything really. There were some very, very vague Pedro Neto links, but I don't think we're going to go for them. Anyway, some of the other news from the game yesterday. Arteta spoke about Jurriën Timber. Obviously, Timber was not in the squad either, having not been in the squad against Liverpool in the final game of the tour. He said Jurriën had a little discomfort in his foot in the last few days, and obviously after the amount of time he's been out, we don't want to take any risk with him. So it is an injury. A small injury. It's like a load-bearing injury, which can happen when you're coming back from a long layoff. Like, suddenly you're putting a lot of force through every part of your legs, including your feet, and that can cause problems. The one thing that I think I found a little bit frustrating is, so obviously, like, it was then put to the media yesterday, it's a small injury, he's not going to be out for long, yada, 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 which is fine. But the thing I think that frustrated me was that he missed the Liverpool game. And the message that came out when he missed the Liverpool game was that there was nothing to worry about. There was no injury concern and that he just needed a rest. So it's slightly different. But yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine. Hopefully he'll be fine. But it's certainly not like a major setback if we assume that Mikel Arteta is telling the truth. Thoughts on Fabio Vieira off the right again yesterday? He looked so uncomfortable and awkward out there, and he hasn't played in midfield at all in preseason. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute. But another thing that Arteta said, and I do find this interesting, and I like it, he spoke about Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly getting more minutes in the first team, and he said this: if they continue like they are doing right now, there is no difference whether they came from the academy or whether we signed them from Argentina, Germany, or Italy. If they are showing the quality that they have, the personality that they have at this level, let's see. Why would we put any restrictions on them? If they deserve the minutes, they will get the minutes. And that's exciting because I thought yesterday they looked so comfortable. Like, I don't know if it's seeing it in person again, like being back at the Emirates where you see them on the pitch in a proper Arsenal squad against a proper opposition, but seeing them like that, they didn't look out of place. That, like, you couldn't tell that they were academy players. Like, a lot of the time you can tell an academy player from a senior player. I felt like you really couldn't tell the difference. Miles Lewis-Skelly a number of times received the ball in quite uncomfortable positions in terms of having someone right on his back, kept the ball incredibly well, used his body really well, spanned the players that were marking him. I think he had 100% pass accuracy, looked completely comfortable. Nwaneri the same, receiving the ball on the turn, driving at players, feeding it off to Saka, spreading the play across the pitch, running with the ball. Like, they look like proper players. And I do genuinely wonder if that has had an impact on the transfer window. And one example I would say is Mars Lewis Skelly. I wonder, early in the summer, we were supposedly looking at players like Kadioglu, and there was this feeling that we were going to get like a left back, or more of like a left wing back. I wonder if Mars Lewis Skelly has basically meant that we've not decided to go for a Kadioglu, because we did supposedly like make actual bids for Kadioglu. Same with Nwaneri. The only thing with Nwaneri is that, fair enough, if he's now considered like Erdegaard's backup, I get it. But like Ethan said, where does that leave? Where does that leave Fabio Vieira? Where does that leave Fabio Vieira? Because the issue with Fabio is he's played entirely off the right-hand side this preseason. Every minute that's been given in the midfield has been given to Nwaneri. I don't like Vieira off the right. I just don't like him off the right. I think, again, there were moments that he showed class yesterday, right? There were a couple of balls that he spread. Truey, honestly, Truey, I might just ban you, because you were just being annoying a couple of streams ago. Then you started apologizing for being annoying, and now you're just being annoying again. It's not glazed to talk about a friendly game. We beat a good Leverkusen team 4-1, and the team played well. It's not glazed to talk about that. Like, you just sound like you are Twitter. I think that's what it is. You are Twitter. You are like the moronic side of Twitter. And I don't know if anyone else in the chat can be bothered with it, to be honest. He's only playing because he's left-footed, and that's rarer. I agree to an extent, yeah. I agree. But the issue is he doesn't have any of the other assets that I feel like our right winger needs. Like, he doesn't have the pace to take it past a man. He doesn't have the physicality. I don't think he necessarily has the defensive ability that Saka has. And I'd almost look at it. I'd probably rather have Ethan Nwaneri off the right. And so now you're looking at it at a point where Nwaneri is arguably the backup for Erdegaard anyway, but he's also probably better than Vieira off the right. So, yeah, I don't know what we do with Vieira. I don't know what we do. I think he'll stay in the squad. I think he will stay in the squad. I think he'll... Do you know what? Genuinely, at the start of last season, Vieira coming off the bench was not a bad option. It was not a bad option having Vieira come off the bench at the start of last season. So he'll stay in the squad, but I do think it's probably a player that you wouldn't mind moving on. Nwaneri is surprisingly quick as well. His acceleration is not Nwaneri. I think his top speed probably isn't that quick, but his acceleration, it's like it's a bit like Jack Wilshere. It's a bit like Jack Wilshere. At full speed, Jack Wilshere was not a quick player. But over short distances, he could just take it past it. He could drive through a gap. He could take it past a man. I don't hate you, Truey, but you are just annoying. I'll be honest. I'll call a spade a spade. I just find you annoying, and irritant. Ethan Udall says Fulham at home last season. He nearly single-handedly won us that game. He was unplayable off that game. Yeah. I don't disagree. But I think the issue is consistency as well, right? Is that we don't see that. But then consistency comes with time. So, I don't know. Were you surprised that Martinelli didn't come on until the 80th minute? I would hope he starts against Lyon. Gabby not playing many minutes yesterday was the only blemish, as I didn't think Trossard needed to play 80 minutes. I was surprised by that. But, and annoyingly, I've not written down the quote, but I think we might be seeing Trossard more than Martinelli this season, potentially. So, Trossard, Jesus, Havertz, I thought worked really well. It was really fluid in that first half. We saw at the start of last season, or supposedly the plan last season, was to play both Havertz and Jesus. It was to play Havertz as a second striker with Jesus. I've got a feeling that, I don't even have a feeling. Arteta said it himself. Arteta was asked about the link-up between Havertz and Jesus. He said he really liked it. He said they understood each other. He said because they're kind of both false nine profiles, They get how each other wants to play. And then he added in himself. He opted to add into that himself Leandro Trossard. He said, and Leo as well. They have a really good chemistry. They all understand how each other plays. And so the fact that Trossard did play 80 minutes, I think it's interesting. So we'll see. But it would genuinely, it wouldn't surprise me if Trossard started the opening game against Wolves. Trossard deserves to keep his place. Yeah, possibly. It's an interesting one. It is an interesting one. But Martinelli offers something completely different. So I do think we could just see them rotated throughout the season depending on the opposition, which isn't a bad thing either. Martinelli has to earn his spot back. Yeah, possibly. But also Martinelli off the bench with his pace, I quite like it as well. But yeah, Havertz in midfield. In fact, we'll let me bring this up actually. So I think Havertz in midfield is something we could end up seeing a lot more of this season. And the reason is this. Havertz himself looks so much more comfortable in midfield now than he did last season. And I honestly think the majority of that is to do with confidence. He's so much more confident on the ball. He wants the ball. He's very happy with it. But the reason that I think we could see a lot more of Havertz in midfield, well, there's two reasons. Firstly, Gabriel Jesus looks not undroppable, but Jesus is playing at a level where I think he could very easily be starting games for Arsenal. And if he is going to start and Saka's fit, then he's going to start through the middle, and that would mean Havertz played in midfield. But actually, the main reason that I can see Havertz starting in midfield is because yesterday, with a midfield of Havertz and Jorginho, we still looked fine. Against a good Leverkusen team with Xhaka and Wirtz and Garcia, we looked fine in midfield. We looked strong in midfield. And that was with Jorginho. If you replace Jorginho with Declan Rice, I think that's fine. Especially if you then replace Zinchenko with like a Calafiori and you've got a lot more defensive reassurance there. I just think we will end up seeing a lot more of Kai Havertz. And, picked up 2 assists, a goal. He was quality. He was absolutely quality. So I think in lesser games, in easier games, I think we could very easily see a midfield of Rice, Havertz, and Ødegaard. Obviously, look, this depends on Merino coming in as well, but this would give Merino time to settle, which would be useful. Rice, Ødegaard, Havertz. I mean, we could literally see this front 5 only with Saka off the right-hand side. And then in the bigger games, I think you move Havertz up top. You probably drop Jesus, move Havertz up top, and you maybe bring in Jorginho or Partey, and you play Rice, Partey, Jorginho. Or Rice and Jorginho, or Rice and Partey. But yeah, I could definitely see that happening. I mean, like yesterday, we look like having Gabriel and Saliba back. I mean, you do just appreciate what an unbelievable defensive partnership that is. I mean, in the first half, when those two were playing together, yeah, Leverkusen had 1 shot on target in the first half. It was they were just they're just unbelievable. They are unbelievable. So yeah, I'm excited, and I think yesterday was an exciting game. We'll see what happens against Lyon, obviously. Partey looked sharp yesterday. Well, Partey did look quite sharp when he came on. Obviously, he came on pretty late, which helps. I mean, I found it interesting that we looked fine with Jorginho as the lone. The fact that we looked fine with Jorginho, Ødegaard, and Havertz, and playing Zinchenko at left back, it was interesting. It was interesting. We look so much better defensively with Saliba, but also Raya as well. It feels like he inspires confidence to the whole back 4. I have 2 super chats. Oh, shit. DD Dart, thank you very much for the 27. What's that one called again? The 27 money. Timber should be fine until Wolves. Sorry, when I went to look at all of those stats, I closed the chat. Anyway, DD Dart, thank you very, very much for the generosity. Timber should be fine until Wolves. Also, Leo over Nelly. Yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting, the Trossard versus Martinelli debate. And Devin with the 199 super chat as well. I don't have much to say, but tiramisu over cheesecake? Nah. I should have ignored that one. Purely for you saying tiramisu over cheesecake. Absolute joke. Cheesecake every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Oh, give me a good. Last weekend, actually, my own mother made a cheesecake. Now, she's actually not an optimal chef, I would say. But she made a cheesecake, raspberry. It was like a raspberry white chocolate cheesecake. Oh my God. Absolutely sensational. Absolutely sensational. On a summer's day, give me a fruity cheesecake, a lemon cheesecake, and we're cooking. So yeah, cheesecake is numero uno. But Devin, thank you for the super chat, and Didada, thank you for the super chat as well. I really do massively appreciate the support on the channel. So thank you for those. Lemon cheesecake is the bomb. Lemon cheesecake, so refreshing, so refreshing. Now that the left-hand side is fixed, we're seeing what Trossard can do on the ball. Well, this is the thing, though. This I find interesting because the left-hand side does feel fixed, right? The left-hand side feels a lot more fluid. Last season felt like it was really tough down that left-hand side. But the left-hand side was what we saw. Like, in terms of the players, it was Trossard, it was Havertz, it was Zinchenko. We've seen that. We've seen that before. And yet, for whatever reason, now it looks much more fluid. It looks much, much better, which is really good to see because we needed it. And hopefully, if you get the left-hand side functioning again, it gives teams more to think about. Last season, teams knew that everything was going down our right-hand side. Teams knew everything was coming through White, Saka, Odegaard in that triangle. And they were overloading that side. And even when they did overload that side, we struggled to then move the ball to the left-hand side and create anything from it, even if Martinelli or Trossard was left 1v1 against the right back. So it's a big advantage. It is a big advantage to have. And hopefully we can continue it. And look, the likes of Merino and Calafiori are only going to add to that. This is with the players that we've already got. And we've bought in Calafiori, presumably to help with that issue. And Merino, I would imagine, will as well. So it's massive. DD Dart, thank you for another 27 money. If Havertz loses confidence, we're cooked, though. Yeah, but hopefully there's no reason he should lose confidence, right? I think the reason he lost confidence was because he was at Chelsea. I genuinely think Chelsea never suited him. They never played to his strengths, and he lost confidence there. But now we play to his strengths. We allow him to play to his strengths. So I don't really think that confidence will go. Are we even getting Merino? Yeah, if you go back to earlier in the stream, Merino's no longer with the Sociedad squad. They're claiming it's because of an injury, but I think it's actually because he's close to moving to Arsenal. Did you think it was interesting that most of the time Partey received the ball, he turned and tried to ping it 40 to 50 yards? Yeah, well, I think that's the big thing that Thomas Partey has is that ability. That is, that's the ability he has that arguably no one else in the squad has. And so if he's trying to prove a point to Arteta and to the fans of like, this is what I can do, it's that. That is what he can do. And again, look, I don't think he'll start much this season, but Partey off the bench when we do need to break teams open or if we're chasing the game, Partey does have a role to play if we keep him. Chelsea screwed him. They were talking about him in the same breath as Mbappe before he went there. Yeah. Kai Havertz was seen as one of the most promising young talents in world football when he moved to Chelsea. That doesn't disappear. Chelsea just did not play to his strengths. The amount you look back to Chelsea games, I saw a thing a couple of weeks ago, maybe now, of like the support that he was given, and it was just non-existent. Like the support he was given was absolutely non-existent. He was left up top with no one around him, and we don't do that, and we won't do that. SEK is the money in Sweden. Swedish crowns. Thank you, Didida, for the Swedish crowns. I do really appreciate it. No news on Tomiyasu. Wonder how bad his injury is. Yeah, no news on Tomiyasu. And interestingly, very interestingly, actually, Kieran Tierney yesterday was not even in the program. And the reason that that's interesting is that everyone's in the program, right? All of the senior players, even so Tomiyasu, because you might say, well, he's injured, so he's not in the squad, so he's not in the program. Tomiyasu was in the program. All of the players were listed. Kieran Tierney wasn't. I think the club basically consider him gone at this point. I don't think it's even on the club's radar that Kieran Tierney would stay this summer. But despite that, he is still at the club. And there is 22 days left to find somewhere for him to go. I'm certain it'll be another loan. I think it'll be a loan to Celtic. But I found that interesting. Tomiyasu and Tierney should be sold for whatever money we can get. Yeah, well, I just don't think you'll get much money for Tommy. You won't get much money for either of them. You get so little money for them at this point, I think, because of their injuries. If we sold Martinelli for like 70 to 80 million, we could get that Saka back up and improve in other positions. Yes, but then you would leave yourselves short. Because if you sold Martinelli, you would not only need to get a Saka back up, you'd need to get another left winger. Because otherwise you'd just be left with Trossard. So I'm not sure it would be worth it. Sweden is expensive. I spent £5 on a can of Coke. Yeah, I think a lot of like, just a lot of that area of the world's quite expensive, right? Sweden, Norway, Switzerland. I think they're all pretty expensive places. Do you think there's a surprise signing coming, given we heard so much about Arsenal shutting down leaks? I would like to think there's a surprise coming, but I'm not convinced. I'd like to think it, but I'm not convinced. By the way, there's just over 300 of you here. If you could click the like button if you've not done already, just pause for a second. Close the chat if you're on your mobile. Click the like button, reopen the chat. If you'd done that when I started talking, you'd already be back right now. You wouldn't have missed a thing. And it helps me massively. So I do appreciate it. And all of you that are sitting there smugly because you have already clicked the like button, you're absolute legends. Scandinavian countries are super expensive. Yeah, I think so. But they're also very nice. They're also very nice places to go. So I wouldn't be surprised if some games we see Havertz off the right. Maybe. What do you think of a 4-2-3-1 with Havertz as a 10? I mean, like in some ways, we're kind of playing a variation of that anyway, right? But it's more of a 4-1-4-1 with Havertz and Ødegaard both playing as 10s a lot of the time. If it were up to you, who starts at left back versus Wolves? That's a good question. Who starts at left back against Wolves? Not Calafiori. I don't think he's ready. I'd like it to be Timber, but if he's not fit, he's not fit. It might end up being Zinchenko, to be honest. Genuinely, I think it could very easily end up being Zinchenko. Which, you know, look, we've got him now. He's our player. We've got to encourage him to be as good as he possibly can. You know, if he plays like he did yesterday, no problemo. However, Zinni against Pedro Neto does give you a bit of a cold sweat. It does give you a bit of a cold sweat. Anyway, it is time for Guess the Gooner. I'm going to give you 5 clues about an ex or current Arsenal player, and you have to guess who that player is in the chat. First person to get it right wins the immense pride and respect of the Rory Talks Football community. So get your fingers on your keyboards because we are starting now. Clue number 1. This player won 2 Premier Leagues and 3 FA Cups with Arsenal. Clue number 1. This player won 2 Premier Leagues and 3 FA Cups with Arsenal. Clue number 2, this player won a Copa America. Clue number 2, this player won a Copa America. Clue number 3, this player scored 15 goals in 127 games for Arsenal. Clue number 3, this player scored 15 goals in 127 games for Arsenal. Clue number 4, this player is an Arsenal invincible. Clue number 4, this player is an Arsenal invincible. And clue number 5, this player currently works at the club. Clue number 5, this player currently works at the club. There we go. Let's make sure we don't get VAR checked. Lots of you have got the correct answer, but who got it first? That is the question. Who got it first? Wow. It's VV Vlad. It's VV Vlad. It was Edu. Last stream, VV Vlad did the dirty double. That means that is now 3. That is 3 in a row. He's done Guess the Gooner, Guess the Non-Gooner, and Guess the Gooner again in a row for VV Vlad. This is This is GOAT status. This is GOAT status performances from VV Vlad. Tom was second. Devin was third. Edward was fourth. And Ethan Udall was fifth. So there you go. There you go. I was quick, but not... Wait, everyone's screaming VAR. Wait, everyone's screaming VAR. Maybe I jumped the gun. Maybe I jumped the gun. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I was right. I'm right. I'm right. What are you VARing for? Why are people calling VAR? We need an independent assessment here. We need an independent assessment. People are screaming VAR, but on my screen, Ross Lawman says all good. That's good enough for me. Ross Lawman is a man of honor. We've seen it before. Ross Lawman. By the way, a lot of you said it basically went VV Vlad, whoever it was. Like, they were all consecutive. So on your screen, you might have been first. But on my screen, VV Vlad was first. On everyone else's screen, VV Vlad was first. There we go. VAR, goal given. Oh, phew. I was panicking then. I was panicking. But it's fine. We're fine. We're safe. Anyway, it is time for Guess the Non-Gooner. I'm going to give you the entire career path of a player who does not and has not played for Arsenal, and you have to guess who that player is in the chat. First person to get it right wins the immense pride and respect of the Rory Talks Football community, but not as much respect as VV Vlad currently has. This player started their career at AS Real Bamako. This player started their career at AS Real Bamako. They moved permanently to Lille. They moved permanently to Brighton. They moved permanently to Tottenham Hotspur. And that is it. AS Real Bamako, Lille, Brighton, Spurs. Who is the player? Lots of you were saying Michu. Was this the case that Ross Lawman said Michu and then everyone just copied? Because why was everyone saying Michu? I don't know. Anyway, the winner it's Ryan Henderson. It was Yves Bissouma. Ryan Henderson was first. Ross Lawman was second. Sportcat with absolutely... that spelling is so bad, I almost don't want to give you third, but I think you were going for it. Ethan Udall was fourth, and John P was fifth. So there you go. Congratulations to Ryan Henderson. VV Vlad unable to complete the dirty double-double. I think if VV Vlad had done the dirty double-double, we might have all had to call it a day. We might have had to call it a day. I rushed it. I could tell. I could tell you did. There you go. Ryan Henderson. We've had the VAR. Check complete. Goal given. And that is another day without me making a mistake. Just a little round of applause for me, if you wouldn't mind. Just a round of applause for me. Because that is another sensational performance by the VAR. Absolutely fantastic. Look, anyway, that is going to be the end of the stream. I massively appreciate all of you for joining, as always. A reminder, the stream tomorrow, 6 p.m. instead of 6:30. Half an hour earlier than usual. I'll be on Twitch tonight. Link is down in the description to the Twitch channel. So if you want to come and join that, it's always good fun. Feel free. But other than that, I hope you all have a fantastic evening. Like and subscribe if you've not done already. And I will catch you tomorrow or this evening. Goodbye.